Hello, everyone. So my final project for cyber psychology was to illustrate the effects of online sexual trauma. But to start out, I wanted to say that sexual deviance is seeking gratification that is seen as unacceptable to society. Um, I know that probably most of us girls have experienced the DM on Instagram from the sugar daddies, um, which is most likely a predator, a sexual predator online, and that is just how they can grasp people's attention is with money, which can be successful in some situations. Unfortunately, there can be catfishing. They're like faking their profiles to receive certain pictures from girls or even guys. Um, but there's even the fact that our boyfriends online can do this. Like, even if we never met them before, or even if, like you still have like an actual boyfriend, and just over Skype or messaging, they'll be like, oh, baby, please, if you love me, please send me photos of yourself. Um, that is a sexual deviance in a way because they are trying to get you to do this even if you don't want to. So let's say like you didn't want to and they keep pushing and pushing and pushing towards it. That would be more of a sexual deviance. However, the sexual predators usually go for teens or kids, but that is not always the case. They do go for older women or men. And some can be very hard about it and push about pictures or opening your webcam and doing certain sexual acts for them. And sometimes these online predators are really sneaky and they stalk multiple accounts. So they can show up as multiple people, which can be a really scary experience for people. I could not imagine. But usually these predators don't really have a sexual criminal activity offline. Like there's no, they don't usually commit these crimes offline. It's just like an online thing. So I find this really weird because it makes me wonder if they can't get that attention offline, like in the real world. So they go straight for the internet where they can be as crude as they want, like we learned in our book. They can be as crude as they want. And say anything, do anything, push people and push and harass and not receive any consequences, which I think is awful. There should be more people that look into the cyber sexual deviance. I think that is a really big issue nowadays because it is growing. Because we're seeing this more and more online. But the whole point of this project was to show the trauma of afterwards, which is pretty much the same as physical rape. So with physical rape, you can still get the PTSD, the guilt, the embarrassment. You have self-harm, like feelings of suicide, depression. Well, it's all the same thing with the online world. So I had multiple studies that I looked into and found all pretty much the same results about these people. So I found one study where these psychologists wanted to further investigate this problem. So they contacted and interviewed online rape victims that had been like raped online. That's what they call it, is online rape. That had gone through that online, and most of them were between 12 and 18 years old. They were girls, and there were 2 boys in the study. So the girls all at one point thought that like they considered the predators to be their boyfriends, and 2 of them actually decided to meet face to face with the perpetrator and ended up being physically sexually assaulted. The other ones were coerced into sending pictures of themselves and touch themselves in certain areas for like the webcam and things, and even if they didn't want to. But what I found really shocking, and which really makes me very angry, is that one of the victims was 12 years old, and uh, the predator was only 17. And so they considered it sexting, in that it was not actually a crime. So just because he's not 18 and older, it's not a crime that he uh, forced and threatened a 12-year-old little girl to send nude photos of herself to him. I think that it's really sick, and just because of your age should not determine whether or not it is a crime. But altogether, the effects are obviously similar to physical rape, like I said before, and so it should be treated as such. Things should not be dismissed because of that. But through the study I just talked about, most of them felt embarrassed and guilty for what had happened because they thought that they could have stopped it. But that's not always the case. So we have that fight, flight, or freeze mode where you can fight it, you can run from it, or you freeze and you do what is told, which actually freezing is very common for physical rape and online rape. So most of these people, these victims, survivors, froze and just did what they were told out of fear, or not understanding, because some of them were so young that they didn't actually understand what was going on. So confusion is brought up into it as well, because usually, like online, it makes it a lot harder to understand exactly what's going on because your predator is not there with you physically. So it's weird to understand what is happening to you. But some of like the families decided that we don't believe you, like this is your fault, so they turned against them completely, while some other families were there for them and helping them through it. Being there is the most important thing for these victims because of the confusion and the guilt of not stopping it. And then there's self-harm, so cutting yourself to feel better or thinking that you deserve that because of what you let happen. You let happen. These people did not let it happen. I just need to get that straight. But also there's the fact of feeling all alone through this process, when even if there are all these people helping you, still feeling alone is a major side effect of it, a major symptom. But then with the embarrassment, there's bullying in school from friends or even from family. You get bullied, so then you feel alone and you get really embarrassed about what happened and you don't want to talk about it. You rather would just be alone. And then just like physical rape, there have been many cases of online rape where the victims have PTSD, or at least an acute form of PTSD from it, which is post-traumatic stress disorder. But I just think it's awful, and that there needs to be more awareness brought to this. These victims can get anxiety and depression and PTSD just as much as somebody can if they are physically assaulted. I just wanted to share a quick story of my brother a month ago actually went through this. A woman online messaged him and threatened him to send pictures of his penis, and if he didn't, then I can't exactly remember what the threat was, but it was something really weird. That she was gonna go and like tell all his friends and like do all of this stuff online to him. Well, he got really scared. He's only 14 years old. He didn't quite understand what was happening. Well, then I get a message from this woman saying, "Oh, is this your brother?" And sent me his photos. And I texted my brother asking what happened. He told me everything. And when I went back and told her, she admitted to everything, but said, well, I'm going to put everything out online. I'm going to send it to all his friends and everybody in the school. And I'm like, what? Like, I was very scared for my brother. And by the way, this woman looked like she was probably like in her 30s or 40s. Um, so my brother was extremely scared, extremely worried, and he actually ended up deleting all of his social media accounts because he's so afraid to go through that again. And well, I think I said that was like a month ago or something. Going through all of that, that was a really scary experience. And he will still text me sometimes and say that he's so embarrassed and he's so sorry that I had to do all of that. And I was like, do not be embarrassed about this. This happened to you, and we're gonna work through it. And obviously, we told my mom and everything. But I think that bringing more awareness to this subject will finally get people to realize that this is not a joke. Those little things that happen online are harassments, and that it needs to stop. It starts with teaching our kids, because nowadays kids have so much more access independently to the internet, where they aren't being watched or there's no restrictions on anything. And I think that starting with kids and telling them what can happen, and in case they run into a situation, to go to an adult is the best thing, and that it can help better with the outcomes of the situation. But also, I really think that the law needs to take this type of crime into consideration. And I understand that it may be a bit harder to find these people, but there needs to be more effort put into it, because the trauma the trauma of afterwards is just as great as physical. So all of like I sorry, I'm like mixing up my words right now. It just needs to be looked at more to further understand the concept first off, but to further try and stop it. Considering our world is rapidly growing with technology and everybody has some form of it, it's going to become more and more common. Thank you.